I'm so excited to introduce you to Jen Woodruff, our guest today. She will forever and ever be known to me as my big sis from University of Michigan. Her fifth year, I was a freshman, and we share a Big Ten title that year, and also a lot of experiences as we were both recovering. I was actually heading into shoulder surgery that year, and she was on the back end of recovering from one. She was the captain of the Wolverines that year. She's earned multiple Big Ten honors as a swimmer, competing in the sport. And I can't wait for you to learn about her background in just the sport and this idea of the pressure that we feel as parents or can feel as parents to specialize early, even though, right, we know it's not necessarily in the best interest of our child's athletic development. So we hear Jen's story. And after college, she moved into coaching. And so she was first at Lewis University, kind of thrust into that position. She'll share about that. And then worked for 7 years alongside of Matt Credit at Tennessee. Matt is somebody that I've known for a long time. And Jen and I talk about the power of mentors and these human beings who have been put into our lives. And I consider her to be one of them. And together we share the late Greg Harden in common, somebody that we both saw and leaned on and worked with in order to help us become experts on ourselves. Her story and journey is the hats that she wears, right? This elite athlete, the perspective of that, of growing up, we can learn from her there, learn from her in terms of coaching and being on the ground at a very high level when we talk about sport and competition and just what that looked like. And then now with this role in the perspective of sport parent and being married to her husband is the head coach of Tennessee tennis. And it was a pro athlete and an elite athlete in his own right. And so this kind of fusion and weaving together all these perspectives that are so rich and bringing those to you today feels like an honor. You'll hear me referencing her because she's helping me on the backside of the podcast. So it was a huge deal for her to be pulled in front and center to record this and let the light shine on her a bit so that we could have this conversation. So she's been helping me behind the scenes source questions and think about how to structure this podcast. And so my heart has so much love for her, and I'm excited for you to hear from her. So let's do it. All right, here we go. And I still call you Jenny in my head, but I know you sign off on Jen everywhere now, so I have to upgrade my language. So when did that fall? We can start just like a silly little antidote. When did that drop? After college?
Yeah, I mean there were 5 Jennies or Jennifers on the Michigan team.
On the team, yeah.
I had to be something else, I guess. I don't know.
Well, to me, you were my big sis, right? That's how I am. So I'm forever grateful for that connection too. And we'll do your intro and bio precedes this conversation. But just so grateful that you're here. And I love to start off by asking kind of for what you're willing to share, going back to your childhood and thinking about your cultural upbringing and background and how that's shaped who you've become today. So let you take that. Yeah.
Thanks. It's just so great to be here. I love what you're doing in this area, in this field with people and making a difference in the lives of young kids in sport. It's just awesome to watch you go.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin, and just this little small town with a big football name. Mm-hmm. And I was from a family who really works hard. Mm-hmm. My parents worked hard, grandfather, grandmother, and really involved in the community. And my brothers also just tremendous hardworking family. And we valued the time together. We went on a lot of family vacations together where we prioritize family even over sport. So, I didn't start swimming year round until I was a freshman in college. So,
just pause on that though. Yeah, that's really unbelievably wild. Because you didn't just go to school anywhere. You went to Michigan. And at that time, right? Like dominating force in the NC2A Division I. Yeah.
Yeah, at that time I walked on as a freshman in '96, and the year prior there, I think I got in second in NCAA. So It wasn't like I was going into this. Here's a major powerhouse time. Mm-hmm. That was the Michigan time period, and I didn't swim year round. We water skied and went fishing and did family stuff.
So did you do I can't remember actually what other sports that you did.
I did in I remember in 7th grade I played basketball on the 8th grade team because I was really tall, but I was terrible.
I was terrible at basketball too. That's real. So it was more so like play, like free play.
Truly,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. My mom swam at Wisconsin before there was a women's team,
Oh
and
my gosh.
you that history and having her guiding me in that sense, but it was more about having fun and really the pursuit of your own goals because Green Bay, Wisconsin isn't it's not really on the map for swimming. So I really was never compared nationally
Mm.
until, my junior year of high school, but we just kind of lived in this small little bubble, I
Yeah,
guess.
we're football, right? A huge piece of that, and then
Huge.
the culture. And so, like, why swim? Right? Were you just drawn to the water? Was there an affinity there? Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think from age 8, I just felt really at home in the
yeah.
water. It came naturally to me. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't ever feel like I didn't know. I felt my body the best in the water.
Mm.
I played tennis actually yesterday. My kids play tennis, and I tried to do an overhead, and they were like, and it doesn't feel natural to me. I don't feel natural
Yeah.
on land. I don't know. Swimmers are weird
No,
like that, I
we
guess.
totally, yes. Although I played soccer growing up too, so there's that piece. But absolutely, that phrase is so just captures it, like feeling at home in the water. Yeah. And so when did your brothers played sports? Like how was it talked about, or like when your mom? Now we have all the calendars and Google calendars and all the things, but just in the home, like where did sport land in terms of like how much focus and attention it took up?
That's such a good question. I don't feel like it was what it is, what I'm doing with my
Mm-hmm.
family. I feel like it was, school first,
Mm-hmm.
family second, sports. Obviously, we went to practice every day, and that was important. They always said I could quit, you
Mm.
know, see the season through,
Yeah.
but it was always an option to just walk away. So the pressure on us was, I don't ever remember feeling like we were living for them. And she had already had tremendous success in the water. My brother swam at Michigan as well. My little brother played football in college. So all three of us did something that just a very small percentage of the population do. And there was never an emphasis on it was really for me, it was internal. It was really self driven.
Yeah.
It was not them talking about winning or records or any of that.
That's amazing. And raising, so before we hit record, we're talking about like what my four daughters, none of them swim. Maybe they're swimming in your future, right? With the summer league. Um, when your mom, like, so that dynamic of raising, I can only imagine because I can imagine and go there in my mind, but I can't relate because I'm raising like hockey players and soccer players. Of how were there lessons she paid forward? Like, what would you pull from your mom and how she raised you? Let's
Mm.
say, in your kids do turn to swimming, right? In your own journey, like what gifts did she give you and how she showed up for you that allowed you to have that success?
I think just acceptance, like
Mm.
always acceptance. Good swim, bad, it was never labeled good or bad, but regardless of how I felt about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't hit a time that I was going for or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember one specific moment where I was really trying to make junior nationals, and
Mm-hmm.
I had to do it on a swim after the meet had concluded, and I was so nervous. And she was like, "Look, you either do it or you don't, and it's okay. Either way
Mm.
is okay." So she gave us the freedom to really fail and fail
Yeah.
safely without the pressure of saying anything at all. Our worth was never tied to our performance. They loved us as humans
Mm-hmm.
because we know we had this deep, deep feeling that we were valued regardless of what we were doing on the field or even in the classroom. It was just acceptance.
That's so incredibly powerful. Like that right there, right? That's the gift that we can give our kids because even the way she's framing that moment where you're doing like a time trial, right?
Yeah,
Standing up trying to race to
the
get the
100
cup.
backstroke. We're just trying
And
to make junior nationals.
yeah. And that like you're gonna be okay. What that does for the nervous system is like, oh, it's not life or death. Like I'm actually gonna be okay on the other side of this, whatever comes. And it gives us that permission to feel, right? To be able to feel the disappointment and know that we're gonna get to that. Whereas yeah, it's just it's so nuanced too. Like feels like, oh, it's just words or it's like so small, but it actually, yeah, in my experience in my work too. So powerful. So amazing. Amazing work. So we get to college, and what was happening for you so athletically, if you want to take us through your journey and career. And I know we both hit some speed bumps, but walk us through that experience for you with whatever you're wanting to share, kind of insights that you gained. And then of course we need to talk about G and our time with him. And so feel free to take it where you want when it comes to just that experience for you.
That was, I mean, I walked on, and I remember the first couple of weeks thinking, I do not belong here. I mean, I was so bad at kicking. It was terrible. I mean, I never will forget what that really felt like. And that spring of my senior year in high school, I was the lifeguard. I had walked in on a situation, and this little boy had drowned in the pool. And I took that with me my freshman year. So every time there was a siren or anything, it really, really brought this emotion out. And that's where I found Greg, thankfully, so early into my career.
I didn't realize you found him freshman year.
That's amazing. Because and I remember him looking at me and hearing my story and thinking, and he said to me, well, that's really sad. I'm really sorry about that. And now what? Like, you're going to carry this forever? You can, but you have a choice to make. You can hold this, and it will never leave you, but it doesn't have to be so present in your life. And I had never considered that.
Yeah.
And so I took that back to the pool, and, those kinds of things with the support that Jim Richardson gave, with all that staff. I mean, Michigan will forever be to me a second home. It really was. It was not easy. I mean, that certainly was the hardest part of my athletic career. But just feeling the strength and the support of the people who carry you. You're doing that with a team. It's not, you're not alone anymore. And that felt really powerful. Meeting you, spending hours on the rowing machine together, and
oh my gosh,
spinning bike. I mean, I swam the fastest I ever had swum that 5th year after my shoulder surgery. Because I did it in a way that I let go of myself. I remember Steph Kurska saying to me, just do it for the team. Do it for Michigan. I'm like, yeah, I won't get so nervous.
So beautiful. Yeah, so incredibly powerful too. So coming back to Greg and in touching on I think it's really important, this podcast is for sports parents, and really, like, I know that there'll be athletes tuning in because some have already told me they're going to listen, and then coaches as well, whose kids maybe have grown and flown, but this idea of pausing and actually pulling in some of the neuroscience and science of stress and trauma that I wear that hat and do that work, and I know you're just as passionate as I am about that space and of mental health and honoring the whole human. What you talked about of the stuff we go through, so that experience as a lifeguard your senior year, and how our body keeps score, right? Our body holds on to that, and so by being able to be witnessed, being able to name it, and then similar to when I met Greg, was like, okay, we can stay in this space of, and I'm not saying this was your experience, but for me it was like, why is this happening to me? Or we can flip it to, how am I going to respond? And this idea of stepping into, and I just raise my body with that because it's this place of like, okay, I can reclaim my power. So this was hard. We're going to name that. And now, even since my work with Greg, learning tools of how to actually help the body regulate and come back to that place. And then it's like, okay, yeah. So just want to name that, because we often think of trauma in terms of kind of big things that happen to us. And it can also be the things that we witness, right? As we're growing up, like we all, and Greg would say, like, we all have baggage, right? All of us.
Truly. And I think of the stories, I was talking about this the other day, when you listen to Desmond Howard talk about his interaction and read about it, I carry this everywhere I go. Everybody, this is amazing.
Totally. So if you haven't read, we probably should pause and say Greg Harden, the late Greg Harden, who left this physical world this past fall, and was what he called like the secret weapon at Michigan. So his story and journey, you can listen to him on podcast, and his book, Staying Sane in an Insane World, is what Jen just held up for those listening. And I have my copies, pass it out everywhere. And that, so I don't mean to interrupt, but I think we probably need to name him fully.
Yeah. But when you listen to like Tom Brady talk or read his story, or Desmond, or mine, and I think what he did to you, Hutch, the same kind of theme is true. It's okay to have the vulnerability, the stories. You are human first. Yes, it's okay for all those things to be. They're true. And now what?
Right.
Brady wanted to be a starter, and Greg's challenge to him. He challenged me to leave this really significant piece of my life at that very moment in time almost behind and move to the next thing. Like, you're capable of doing that next thing, but it's a choice you have to make. I mean, you really have to put in the work for that. And his lessons are just, they're applicable to everybody. They're not just sports related.
Oh, totally. Yes. I've had people reach out who read his book, and they're not right. It's not. They're not even in the athletic space anymore. They're just reading it because his words are the lessons inside of it. I think there's so many places we could go. We're gonna have to have you back on, and I've already named you on shows because you feed me questions, and so I'll say to the guests like this: Jen, my big sis at Michigan, who will forever go. That's forever associated, because I'll just kind of pausing in that space, the importance of connection and belonging and just being seen and being witnessed, and actually like that friendship and that presence that you had like meant everything to me. And I truly believe that your presence and our connection and my work with Greg like are the reasons why I'm still here on this earth, truly, because it was a really dark, hard time. And you referred to your shoulder surgery. You had that experience, and I had my shoulder surgery, and it was like that in of itself is just hard, right, for any athlete. And then on the back end of it, to be able to have someone to like walk with, the spin bike you're referencing, we went to a gym off campus, and it was like the music pumping and moving my body in a way that I could, kind of claiming that challenge that Greg threw down of okay, so now what can you control about this? How are you going to respond, was so life-giving. Yeah, so thank you, truly.
It makes me cry. I don't feel like I ever did anything more than what anybody was doing for me, which is holding space for you and going through that together. I really believe we together did that. It wasn't me doing something. You gave me so much as well. So, and thinking about what we are actually capable of, even in times that are so very difficult, and remembering that we're not alone in that is, I think it can be a very, very lonely space. And when you go there, all the things that you went through kind of happen, and you that this idea of connection, when I think of my kids now, I'm like, I just gotta be one strong connection here to, and that's what all the research says.
That's it, exactly that. It is exactly that. And it's like, that is life-giving. I think you're speaking to that research, right, of just like what, like saving a life, like one trusted adult, one loving presence in that space. And so I think that we'll just forever grateful, and any chance that we have paying forward to what Greg shared with us, because what a privilege to be able to sit in that seat, even though it didn't feel like it at times. I felt like I was like, yes sir, okay, I'll go do this, even though I don't want to.
I know. But don't you wish every time I walked out of there, I felt like he had reframed for me everything that I was thinking in a way that I could go and actually have action steps to. And that phrase of control the controllables, I mean, I must say that a couple times a week now in my own life, because I wish I had recorded it then, because everything he said, I just wanted to soak into me. And I'm just so grateful for this book and his podcast, or his, TED Talk and all of that, because it's the language, it's how to go through things that are really hard. And that's human. That, being human is hard.
Yes. And that's where I leaned on his words. I remember calling him after Mia's heart surgery, like literally using the same skill set that he taught me, drawing on all of that to just put one foot in front of the other. So I say, like, it's skills for cracking through to new levels of performance, like just continuing to up level. And it's also like to get through the really, really hard stuff. So from that, right, you graduated, and I lose track of time because I went into this kind of space and then ended up transferring to UGA. But I remember when I was at a meet, and I'm like, why are you wearing Tennessee colors? Like, this is, early in social media days, like, no, because Facebook wasn't even a thing then, actually. It was
Yeah.
like before that. So talk us through that transition, because you've also worn the hat of coach in collegiate, like a very strong program, work with another incredible human. So
Yeah.
take us through that transition post school, and if you did you know you wanted to be a coach?
No, I went to Lewis University first as a graduate assistant. And the very first day of practice, Steve Hawkins, just a great human, he said, I'm going to Ohio State actually to be the men's assistant. And I was like, huh. He said, so do you want to be the head coach of the team? I'm like, I'm 23. I just left Michigan. Sure, I'll do it. Like, why not? I was like, I'll just try it. If I don't like it, I don't like it.
Right.
And then I did that, and I really loved it. And then Matt called because he had gotten hired at Tennessee, and the connection was through Jim Richardson. And Matt is an unbelievable human. I know you're going to have him on. He's just a really sees the world in the way that the Greg did, and in a way that anything is like truly anything is possible. And I was here until I had my son, and then I retired from coaching. My husband coaches tennis here now, so I feel like I get to kind of get my fill through him.
Totally, but also the perspectives, right? So kind of slowing it down, head coach of a program. So started out as assistant, quickly slide into head coaching position, then at an SEC powerhouse program with Matt Credich, who I've known since I was young, growing up. He was at Brown University, and just again, like if there was kind of a phrase that captures those memories and those years, it was like loving presence. And he didn't really, I mean, he knew me from watching me in New England swimming, but like was genuinely cheering me on. Like you just felt this warmth of like caring. And so you come into Tennessee in an SEC program, and that there's so much, right, perspective gained there, and building relationships, and in that space of what I talk about, like honoring the human while also striving for excellence, kind of just what that actually looks like. So I would love if you want to spend some time there, and then we can transition to also perspective of being the wife of a coach. Like there's just so many perspectives that you have picked up that provide such rich insight for those that maybe raising their kids and maybe played a sport growing up, but like it's just they're not, like we're not aware of what we don't know, right? So so what would you speak into the culture and just like
the just the one of the very first mornings, we were inheriting a team of that had had a really successful year, but really didn't buy into what we were, because we were new, and they didn't want to shift that, and we were aware of that. I remember going to morning practice one day, and he's like, we don't act tired. It's 6 a.m. and I don't want to know the difference between this 6 a.m. workout or the 2:30 p.m. workout. And I was like, well, yeah, why should we let the clock decide if we're going to act tired or not? It was just those little subtle shifts in the way you see things, in the reframe of that. And he truly coached the whole person. And some of those early successes with Christine Magnuson, she I remember sitting with Matt when he told her that he thought she could be an Olympian, and it was like, oh, really? Me? Another person who didn't grow up swimming all year round, and then at Tennessee just had gotten better and better and better. But he saw in every single person, or still sees in every single person, the ability to get that here they are. How are we going to get them here? And he sees it even when you don't see it. And that's the connection, I think, with Greg, is that Greg could see it in you, even when you couldn't see it. And that is powerful. And that's what I love about coaching, is because you really can see people. It's addicting. You get drawn in because people are pulling out their hearts and their souls, and they don't think they can do the thing that you've asked them to do. And then all of a sudden they do it. It's like, oh, I just did that thing. And they are so filled. And I'm so filled by that, because you've taken them to a point where like their body and their mind is telling them, I'm all finished here. And Matt just continued to hold a standard, a loving standard of, you're capable. Let's go do it. What are we waiting for? And that is a very invigorating place to be.
So powerful. Was it hard to shift and step down for you, to shift roles?
Awful. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I miss it. Oh, I miss the energy of what that is, because I miss seeing in people, like he sees through you in the way that Greg does. And being around those kinds of people is just so inspiring. It's like, not that you're wrong or bad for, being over here. It's just that I know you're capable of this over here, and I'll walk with you in that. And that is, it just, it allows a person to be vulnerable, and allows a person, again, to be human, and then search for success. And I think if you look at all the success, you look at who we evaluate, who are the best players in the world of anything. They've all gone through something really hard, and they've had to have somebody be there and support them through it. And that is Matt and his wife Kim and Greg. Oh my gosh, I could just cry.
How blessed, though, right? So it's just this, to be able to walk alongside of him and learn and see in a different way, this like manifestation of the similar, yes, the belief in seeing. That is also when I write or reflect on Greg's experience, and even Matt, it's like they're different in how they present it, right? Like Greg's a little bit louder with it, and Matt is just this, like, in my experience, but that steady belief. That's the teacher. Like, that's what I call the teacher in me. Like that desire to help people get to that place of like recognizing their power, reclaiming their power, seeing like they're way more capable of what they thought they were. Yeah, and to walk alongside. So powerful. So you shift gears, and now you have this perspective of being married to a coach, right? And who also is at Tennessee Division I, and very successful athlete in his own right, and coaching a high level program. And so that, any nuggets or wisdom that, I think a huge piece of this is to humanize all of us, right? The podcast, the intentions, and also in a couple of the conversations I've had so far, it's like humanizing the coach, which is very easy to do when we get hooked as a parent and we start to like go into this fight flight mode of right, seeing it's like us versus them, and actually losing the humanity of the coach. And so if there's any kind of nuggets or wisdom or insight that you want to share of what you've learned by being in that space.
Gosh, my husband was 7 in the world at one time playing tennis, so he has, like you, this mastery of the skill, and there's just not a lot of them. There's, if 1% are playing college athletics, then this small number are going pro or winning gold medals. I mean, those are just the top of the thing. But he loves to help people find in them what they, it's the same message as what they think they couldn't do and now they're capable of doing. And it's so interesting to work with Joe Whitney is our sports psychologist here, and he tells me all the time, he's like, swimming and tennis are different. I'm like, I have to remember that, because in swimming there was always something that could come from that moment. If you get a best time, you work on a turn, there's always feedback, right? In tennis, it really is governed by the wins and losses in a different kind of way. So the pressure is different in rankings. And I think of football and basketball and soccer, like, okay, great, you had a great game, you scored some goals, but did you win? Like, that conversation is something that I didn't face for my whole life. And now, because there is, when you dial it back to the individual performances in tennis, of course, you can find the things to keep practicing and working on. And the W is what governs all the things. So I've had to learn a lot from him, understanding that, it's okay to want to win, and it's the goal is to win. And he's had to check himself, I think, because he was putting a lot of pressure on himself to do the winning. And he's had a tremendous amount of success in every single thing, as an athlete, as a coach. So we have to really check ourselves, though, and remember that these are college-age men.
Young people. Totally.
They are young, and they have, and that's what I love, too, about coaching is someone could go through all these experiences in their short college time with you. It could be their parents divorcing. It could be breaking up with a boyfriend. It could be, I can't go home because I live in Australia and I miss my home. All of those things, not necessarily about the win and loss.
Developing, it's helping to raise humans. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah.
it's all of it together, and just remembering that they're human, and
That's the
they're
theme.
young.
And then you pull it into your, like, the family dynamic. So Rob was not nearly at the level that Chris was when he was an athlete, but still we're both like, he played collegiate baseball, and so like the two of us, we have to be like, wait, we got to check ourselves here, because
Yeah.
like that, just the drive, and not putting that on our kids, because that's not what it's about, but that competitive juice still flows inside of us. It pops out at board games and things. Or when we're playing like kickball, like, right, as a family. So how do you navigate that, knowing, because you both had incredible success, and so we're not going to shortchange your successes either. And I think we shared that 5th year that you're talking about, that Big Ten ring. So when I work with Ohio State, that's like we know such a dynamic, that I've got that Big Ten ring, but it's not it's not with Ohio State, it's with Michigan that year. So you had success, Chris has success, and now you're raising kids, right? So like shifting gears to what role does sport play in your current life? I mean, clearly it's in the everyday because Chris and what he's doing. But yeah, will you speak to that with this kind of sports mom hat on?
Yeah, I'm so thankful that I've had the mentors that I've had. But, I mean, it's given me a place to go forward from with them, and I feel so lucky to have had those experiences already, and knowing that this is a long journey. So I have a 13, 11, and 8-year-old, and what I've always said is I want them alive till 25, right? Like frontal lobe development.
Totally.
And sport plays a role in
I
that.
haven't heard that. I literally say that to my kids, though. My job is to get you till this is done developing. Okay.
Yeah,
A lot.
through that, if that's music, if that's performance, stage, if that's dance, whatever that is, it's going to connect you to feeling valued. I remember my mom saying to me, later after we had our careers, we really wanted you guys to feel something that you could be really good at and confident in, because that would give you a place to just feel value from internally. And so whatever that is for our kids that helps them feel that, I will do all the carpools, I will do all the early mornings, because your heart is walking outside your body. These little people who you don't know what they're going to do or be, so I'm glad that I can see from a perspective that it's a lifetime. That I don't have to squeeze out of them the success right now. I think we get into this. It's got to be the best 8-year-old. You got to be the best.
Yeah.
That conversation starts really early, and I'm so glad more people are talking about it, because it's so dangerous to them. And we see at the college level how many kids don't really want to do it anymore. I don't love the word burned out, but there's just they can't find the joy like they used to. And is that because we have the model wrong? What is that? So having had mentors that showed me that this is a lifetime of living, and it happens to be about something that you love to pursue, I think hopefully I'm giving that to my kids. I don't know. I'm sure some days I do, and some days I'm
totally.
Come on, let's go.
That's what's. I think that right there too is the piece of it. Well, there's multiple parts of that I want to touch on, but the piece of like, we're doing the best that we can. Like, we're not going to get it right all the time. Even when we look at what our values are, how we're wanting to show up, how we're humans too. Like, that's real. And the piece about allowing them to follow the joy and the pressure that you can feel by, like, I'll speak to my 9-year-old, right? Trying out she wants to play girls hockey. In order to play girls hockey, you can play co-ed, like, town teams now that we've moved, like, where we came from, like, just really small, not a lot of resources. And so it's not like there's YMCA programs and rec programs, right? So she loves the sport, wants to play, and then it's like tryouts. Like, she got like try out for a travel team at 9. Well, she was 8 at the time. And so this idea of, okay, and then the tuition that comes with that and all these things, you can easily fall into this space of getting hooked of like, okay, like, what are we, like, how are we gonna do all the things that don't necessarily matter, and allowing them to find their joy. And so when she goes out on the ice and she's literally like talking about necklaces at the face off with the girl across from her, and then one game she switched sticks because she like wanted to switch sticks with a girl on the other team. Like we just like let that, like that's her thing. Like let her do that, right?
Yeah.
And I think as parents, what's your perspective? And I'm not saying we're not looking for a right answer here, but really taking your experiences, thinking of them like this beautiful tapestry, pulling it all together, and then I would love your insight or thoughts on like what's the shift? Like what has happened that went from, where we went from family play and vacations and kind of this like looseness around following the joy to this feeling, this almost like sense of urgency that's not warranted when it comes to correlation of like we've got books out, like we've got studies to show like it's not the path, but somehow we've fallen into thinking that it is. Yeah, what are your thoughts there?
Gosh, I agree with you 100%. I started wearing this Whoop in 2020, and I remember my oldest was pitching, and my Whoop score, my heart rate, was off the chart. I mean, because I wanted him to have whatever success he wanted to have, right? Like whatever that was.
Yep.
It was the first time he'd ever done it. I'm like, oh my God. And I remember thinking, my heart rate is like in 175 beats per minute, and I'm not doing anything. I am just standing here watching my kid pitch.
And loving. And this is what it means to have your heart outside of your body.
Exactly. And the same thing is true when I watched Chris's team play. I remember comparing Whoop scores to one of the players, and my score was higher than theirs. And they had just played in the match and won. Because I remember thinking about Greg and going back to control the controllables. I literally can do nothing with him.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. I am going to have to sit here. I want things to be fair, right? Like, I think that's part of, I do want a fair game, so if there's that, I will probably get more heated, but, and I don't want them to get injured, that is the other thing. But other than that, and we can't control that either, but those are things that still will spike me. But I think just remembering that we are not in control of that, and we creating space for them they have to learn how to fail. They have to have those things, because what I want ultimately for them is to be resilient and to be gritty and to have determination. And that doesn't happen if I am controlling it for them or I am holding their feelings for them, right? Like they have to go through it. And as a parent, and I just think of my parents and how much they did that for us. And she says to me, like, we wanted you to fail really safely. And I want that for my kids, as hard as that is. Yeah. And I'm not good at it all the time, but I want them to be able to see and then rise from that. Like you talk about it all the time. How do you rise from that thing that you don't make the team, and then you like, okay, now what? Same thing that we learned from Greg, and the same thing that Tom Brady talks about. It doesn't now what? What is the choice now?
It's it.
So I think that's the shift.
You can't you can talk about it, intellectualize it, like game plan, but until you're in it and like you're feeling the waves of disappointment or frustration or embarrassment and get to the other side of those waves, like that's where the skill building is. It's like looking at like a squat rack and being like, yes, the benefit of squats is this, and this is going to make you really strong, but like you've got to get in there and do the reps. Yeah, and it's hard. So how do you
play? Yeah, my youngest played on 2 different travel teams this year, one baseball and one soccer, and navigating that, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's playing 4 days a week in a practice, and then most weekends he is being held to a standard. He's 8, held to a standard which if we're going to do it, want there to be a standard, right? But 4 days a week that he's held to a standard of performance.
So it's would you say it's a performance standard? Because I think there's a shift there too of like what you can control, your attitude, your effort, right? Those pieces, those are 100% within their control. The outcome piece of the performance, right? There's a level of performance outcome, and then the performance, and then the outcome, like the result. There's elements in there that are out of control, and depending on the sport, right? Varying degrees. Yeah. So is it? So speak to that.
Yeah. And I think what we've done, I think, is be really selective in the coaches. I feel so blessed that we've found coaches who really align with our model. I mean, our history and the way we see sport and the role that sport plays. who have had careers in sport that are more than, just it's rec whatever, and so they see kind of the big picture. And I feel really lucky to have had these also mentors in the kids as their kids coaches. I think they're just being held. There's no free play, right? Like he's not going out and playing a pickup soccer game or a pickup baseball game, or we do that at home, but there's no those aren't intentionally carved in the week anymore, because we're going from, one has tennis, one has swimming, one has cross country, one has volleyball, 10 different things spread out over the week. There's no intentional free time.
The free play, and even in the neighborhood or community, right? It's so interesting. So how do you bring, or what do you pull from your experience in childhood? And now the world is different, right? Like there's so many pieces that are not the same. So what do you pull to keep in alignment with your values and maybe infuse play or family vacations or whatever it is for you? How do you do that dance? Like that, I think, is the point of tension for so many of us, where we're like, we long for this, yet we're doing this. Like, how do we, so how do you navigate that space?
Yeah, and we want our kids to have the choice. I mean, I want my kids to be able to have had all the resources if they make that choice. I don't want to not give them the coaching or the training or the things, because I do want them to be able to have whatever they want from sport. I don't want to hold them necessarily back from that. But I think having summers off for us, for right now, like we are not doing anything, and it's strange to like not have a schedule, and except for summer league swim that is just fun. But being intentional about that, and I'm going to shift it next year. I think what this year showed me, because you have to live it too, right? Like you can't, you don't know until you know. And this idea of not wanting to specialize kids too early, and yet we're not creating space to do that, to have seasons. We all know, the research says, everybody's talking about it, that specializing kids will lead to more injuries. I mean, the MLB just said something about how the NCAA pitchers are coming to them with, arms that are not ready to sustain that. So there's all this conversation. So I think just being really intentional, but also having to go through it and learn, like
what the edges are. Absolutely. We went the other way this spring, and we were just the way that hockey landed. We're in a new community in town, and we were like, we're still trying to feel out resources, so we didn't do spring. My kids, so it showed me the loss of so they played in I live in a tiny little neighborhood. So it's like a cul-de-sac at the end, and I'm very grateful for that there's actually kids in the neighborhood. So there's a little bit of play, throwing football around, but my kids miss their peers, interaction, movement, and so there's so many benefits that go beyond even the skill of the sport, where I'm like, we will not ever again take a spring season off. We will be doing something, and that's a great time to try out whatever it is. Like your parents, our philosophy is finish the season, and then you don't ever have to do it again, unless it's abusive or not in a healthy or safe environment. So you're speaking right into the space where I think the current structures are set up such that if we want to, we were talking about both of us swim, but none of our children swim for USA Swimming year round, and it's like that wasn't appealing because of that year round piece and everyday training, and so it's figuring out ultimately what matters for us and our family unit, and then sometimes we go past the edges, and then we have to bring it back in, and that's okay. We won't know unless we do it.
My middle did swim year round this year, and
I didn't know that.
But it was we only went twice a week. When I committed myself to twice a week.
Okay.
Because she loves the water, and I wanted to, if she wants to come back to it, I did want her to have a starting point. And the water is just it's a place to feel calm, and she really needs that. And but again, it's about having coaches that will support that. Our soccer coaches, we want him to keep playing soccer because we don't know what he's ultimately going to choose at 14. And I want him to be, and he said, if we start going to hotels every single weekend this is their team philosophy at 8, they're going to burn out. They're going to hate this at 14. It's not going to be special. It's not going to be fun. like, oh, I totally align with that. And he would allow us to miss to go to baseball. And so we had this really nice way. And I think it matters who's coaching and what the
Yeah.
coaching philosophy is, because other teams are not allowing for that. And that's where I feel like the conversation has got to deepen. It's the why, what are we ultimately looking for? Are we looking
Mm-hmm.
for wins? Are we chasing wins? Or
Mm-hmm.
what are we chasing? Are we chasing healthy kids? The
Mm-hmm.
mental. And so finding your alignment with the people that you're putting your kids with, I think that's a
100%.
huge part too.
Yeah.
And we've been really lucky.
Well, and it's in some places I think are way more resource than others with what you have for choices, right?
Yeah, right.
When my daughter first, we were living in a very rural, remote area, and our oldest wanted to continue playing hockey. She was like, she caught the bug, but at that year, the jump was then checking for boys, and we just like, we
Mm-hmm.
gotta go all girls. So we drove out, it was an hour and 40 minutes, like each way, which is wild. And we
How many times a week did you do that?
twice a week. So it's different than swim. So it's twice a week, and then doing like land, dry land, they call it actually in
Oh
hockey.
my gosh.
But before we did that, I had like interviewed the coaching staff. I didn't know them, and
Yeah.
so that I'm laughing in a way because it's like that actually I feel like could become like standard practice, like asking like, what are your thoughts on this? And it was probably partway through the season. We were on I think they had like two travel trips that year, and in the downtime, the head coach said, like, we've never been asked those questions. Like, we really appreciated that, and we're thinking about them. And it just opened our eyes to think about what you were asking in a different way. So it was cool. They were receptive, right?
Hmm.
And so I guess don't be afraid to ask. What are some things that you look for or ask when you're looking at having your kids join programs? Because the other part of this is too, when they get older, they start to spend more time with the coaches than they actually
Hmm.
do us.
Hmm.
If they're
Hmm.
in traditional school and then going to practices, for sure in college, right? So yeah,
Oh, for
what are
sure.
questions that you
Yeah.
ask or things that you look for, or language
I
that you look
think,
for?
um, you know, what I've kind of seen is when a child, it's different than swimming, right? Like you and I, we've said this, but when they make a mistake on the
Mm,
field or on the rink, what what is their way of helping them make a different choice the next
mm-hmm.
time? I want to know, because I think it's really important that they are allowed to make those mistakes and
Yeah,
really go for it and not be punished for it. Because if they're feeling that, then they're never gonna try it again because they don't want that shame
the threat
piece,
of it, totally.
yeah,
Yeah.
brought in.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna limit themselves in that way. So I want to know that,
Mm-hmm.
because, and then I want to know, can we play other sports?
Yeah.
I,
What's their take on that? Mm-hmm.
what's your take on that? How much? What is the commitment going to be? And maybe that won't work for us as much as. And then it's interesting when you. I think that rec serves such a big part of it and is so important. And do we all need to be doing travel stuff? And
Mm-hmm.
that's something I think that I need to just check in ourselves and see, what is the purpose behind some of this? And it's
Mm-hmm.
expensive, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to pay for parking. You've already paid the thing. You already, and then you've got tennis. You've got to. I don't disagree with the system because you have to have a way to rank them, but you have to go and play tournaments or earn points. And
That one,
if you
we
don't
could
earn
spend some
points,
time
then
there for the
you.
people in that tennis community because I was learning when I was mentoring a young girl. I'm like, wait, so hold on, what? So if you play someone this level, like the whole thing is so incredibly challenging. And then, so like the numbers and I know you
Yep.
have your kids are playing tennis and then the experience of walking alongside of your husband, that, and then I go like different dimension of it, just like gymnastics and numbers or diving, like learning about the culture inside of the sports has been
Mhm.
one of the
Mhm.
most enjoyable parts of the work I'm doing now.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think inside of each different sport is this different challenge around being able to maintain like your worth is intact regardless. Like
Yes.
not attached to these numbers when it comes to your
Yes.
rank and all that, because that just becomes so easy to see my name and my rank and this person has this rank, and so right therefore they're better. So
Mhm.
that idea of separating like who you are from what you do, that was one of the most impactful lessons Greg taught me, and how that is so challenging in the sports that use numbers and ranking systems. So tennis is kind of a combo because it is like pretty straightforward whether the ball, but whether it's in or out, right? When it comes to points, but that system, yeah. So how do you help? What are you doing or finding helpful to have kind of conversation wise in the home to just be reinforcing when the world and the culture is kind of saying something different? Yeah.
I think that the biggest person there is Chris, and he says to our son, we're not chasing points. We are not chasing points. Put that away. We're not chasing it. We're not chasing a ranking. Because it's the same thing, who is the best now? Sinner was a skier. All those people had, even Federer, they all did these other things at this early age. So who is the best long term? So just reminding them that this is not but it's so hard because then you don't get into the tournament that you want to get into because you don't have enough ranking points because you haven't played enough tournaments. If you play enough tournaments, that means you're going every single weekend and you don't have, we've got multiple kids playing multiple sports in multiple cities and there's two of us and sometimes he plays on the weekend and, it's a happy problem to have, but logistically it's very challenging. So we're not a family who can play every single weekend. So we've got to get really comfortable with this long-term plan, this long-term end game, play that out and help him understand that, this is, we value as a human and not whether or not you're going to get into a level 4 or level 5 but it's very hard. I don't know if you remember waiting for the Swimming World magazine to come out.
Oh, totally.
And you could check and see where you were.
And I was nowhere. Yeah. So to think
I
about
was nowhere.
Yeah. And I think about 96. Like that game for me was one of the hardest games that was the hardest. I couldn't even watch because I was like in such a hard place, was with a club team that was not healthy. The environment was toxic. I was sliding into, now I have the scale behind me, but I was sliding into sinking and just like didn't want to do anything. And that Swimming World I will never forget because I had Christy Cole was on the cover of it, like right when in tears from the 96 games and just missing. So Christy's a friend of mine. She just finished at Georgia, but we swam and trained together, and she made the 2000 team with me, but had missed, gotten third, right, just one spot away by a hundredths of a second. And so that, yes, waiting for Swimming World, and I will never, similar to how you're saying, coming in and like just feeling like you're not belonging, like not great in relative to where others were when you first got to Michigan. I will never forget the like intensity of looking at that list and feeling like that, having the thought of I'm too late, I'm never going to make it, and then the intense emotion that comes with that. So thank goodness, I think one of the greatest permission slips from my parents was like, just like, we believe in you, and holding that space, and if you try hard. And so there's all these kind of messages that were in our home, and then the shift to my club coach, who ultimately was like, okay, how'd they get there? Like, everyone had to start somewhere. Everyone was not on that list at one point, right? And being able to ground that down. But yes, it is challenging. And it does, like, that, I think you're speaking, it's like my brain is going, because you're helping me connect dots on where does a sense of urgency come? Like, why have we fallen, if we know, if the data's saying this and we know this, but like, why the pressure? And it's opportunity. I feel like there's opportunities, because like we just went through this with national team development selection started this year for my big kid, and it's like, she was late to hockey. She was doing all kinds of things that weren't hockey because I was like, we're not doing hockey. Yeah. And so, right, you're like, oh, okay, yeah. So staying the course, and actually the woman that was in charge of it stood up in front of the parents and said, listen, I never made it. Like, I made it my senior year only because somebody got hurt and they called me in, but I never made it. And I was on a full scholarship to Northeastern, winning championships and games. And it was like, that was really expansive to hear when you're sitting there, because it's like, it almost feels like doors close, and then what?
Right.
But what would you say to a parent who's feeling that? Like,
read Greg's book. And I would have to read it over and over because. Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like, we might not, and so is that all that hard work worth that? Is it worth it? And I look back at my life and I think, oh my gosh, it really was. There's so many lessons, all the things the sports teaches, all blah, blah, but it is. It's a journey through that, and I would never ever trade any of that. And I didn't make it. Like I didn't make it to the Olympics. I had dreams to do that, but that's not where I landed. Could I have controlled that? I think so. I think going back, there are some things I've learned now that I could have been better. I am lifting heavier now than I ever did in college. What is that about? Is it because I just, allowing yourself to let go of that end result almost in some ways, and is it worth it? And I think if you're watching your kids do it, would this be worth it? Would this journey be worth it? And I want to hold both, because for my kids, I want them to love exercise and going for it and putting themselves out there and trying something new, and all the things that we want from them in sport. And what if they don't play college sports?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Letting that go. 100%. It's
There's a really great book too that our school read in the fall, and it just talked about even getting into college. That getting into college, everybody's the same at that level, right? So you've got, and so as parents, the goal was to say that we love you we love you when, we love you no matter, we love you, and you can choose to go to an associate, you can choose to go get your graduate degree.
Yeah.
You can go to trade school.
Yeah.
You can hopefully just, finish high school, but that's a really important goal for everybody. But that whatever that is, we love you. We love you. And giving them this, and not saying that Yale is the place or Princeton is the place, or putting this expectation, because then you have set up for them already that they failed in that space. It's a powerful moment for me to hear that from her, because all the options seem to be on the table for the kids. That making the Olympics doesn't make them better than or more than. It's a fun thing. Like, you wouldn't not do it, right? Like, it was amazing, but it's not what drives you every single day. Like, you don't.
Well, it also doesn't complete
define you.
Yeah, it doesn't make you better than, even though the ego might say that, the world might shine attention on you in certain ways, but that ends, that fades, lights go out, attention shifts. And so I feel like we pull it here and land a plane here, because it's this idea of what is worth doing. And the same is true for us as parents. So we're kind of checking ourselves and what we're committing to as a family, what's worth doing, even if that outcome, we're still going to strive for it, of course. And also if it doesn't happen, would this still be worth it? And that I will pulse check that probably once a week, honestly. How are things going? What's working? What's not? Okay. Taking inventory there. And then for the kid or our kids, it's not all going to be fun, and it's not all going to be joy. It's going to be hard. And so allowing them, creating your own parameters. And it sounds like we operate in similar ways of finish the season, and then you don't, the commitment to the team, and then you can never choose to do that again. But this idea of allowing them, does the sport bring more joy over the big picture or more stress? Which one is it? Because it has to be. And I cannot tell you how many young people I mentor who are performing at high levels in sport, who will say, well, then it wouldn't be worth it if I don't get there. And it's wait, hold on, would it be? Because we've got to really ask those questions. What are you gaining from this other than this kind of singular focus of this is the way and this is the track? What are the other benefits of doing this thing?
And but when you're in it so hard, it's hard to see that, right? I went to a baseball game over the weekend, and my child was not playing in it, and I was just feeling the emotion that was attached to it. And I've felt that emotion. I've been there in those moments. I mean, I used to go recruiting, I would just cry sitting in the stands because of all the love. When you're in there and these parents are cheering so much for these kids, it was so powerful. But now I'm watching baseball, and I'm like, oh my gosh, are we this wrapped up in this?
Yeah.
The end result,
well, that
but when your
there's
child
even
is
fist fights, right? There's all of that.
You really do have to do the work to ask yourself, what is there worth in this, and what is the end result here, and what is this doing for my child? And I think if we are also not tied to the outcome, right? We cannot be tied to their eventual outcome. It cannot add worth like, oh, well, you have an Olympian. I'm a better parent than you. Like,
Yeah.
we cannot play that game
Right.
with ourselves. Like, we can't. And we do. Like, we start to
You
get
gotta
into
keep
that
unhooking from it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Last little one, because you mentioned your Whoop. What do you do? Practical, like real, just like real mom hacks. How do you manage when your heart rate's high or you're spinning internally? I know I think I've mentioned maybe on episodes before, there's like chomping gum, rocks in my pockets. Like, what do you do to help yourself regulate and remember to zoom out when your actual heart rate's pumping 175 beats a minute?
I will walk around. I will start pacing. Yeah. I'll probably go to Instagram, just to like completely
distract.
It is a work in progress.
Yeah.
It is. You told me one time, take that thing off.
Just take
it off. But I do want to know, because I don't want to be that, right? Like, I want to check myself, and I sometimes can't, and like, I'm going to give myself permission to feel that and understand where it's coming from, because I think where for me it comes from is that I love them, and I think we love our kids, that's what we're doing. That's kind of the base, right? Like, it's that, and I want to see them go wherever they want to go.
Yes.
So and I have to I remind myself that failing is really powerful.
Yeah. So you're almost talking to yourself too.
I am talking myself down all of the time. Yeah.
I love that. So like, encourage it's a thing. Yeah. Encouraging self-talk internally, being having that inner coach voice going can be really powerful. And before we even get there though, it's the noticing. So maybe you need a Whoop band to notice. Like, I can sense it by my body just like starts to get tight. Yeah. Or I start to see things and I'm a little like jumpy. Like, my body wants to react. Like, my reaction's to fight. So.
Yeah. And like Joe talks a lot about, like, if we win, we learn. If we lose, we learn. And I'm like, if he doesn't strike that guy out, and there's a home run and there's a walk-off and it's my kid pitching, he gets to learn what that feels like, and that's okay.
Yes.
I have to get really comfortable with him going through that, and that is very yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're amazing. I'm so grateful.
Oh my gosh,
for this
you're
conversation.
amazing.
Oh, and more from you. I know. I like so appreciate that you came on to the space. And I know that we'll have you back.
It pushed me, man.
Yeah, I know. Get you talk about discomfort. We got to practice that too. So, okay. All right. So, is there any place where people want to be in touch with you or ask you questions that they can?
Oh, gosh.
And it's okay if not. They can come through me.
Okay. Go through you.
Yeah. So, if people have questions for you, they can come through me. And then we'll put in Greg's book for sure in the call notes so that people can order that.
And it's not I'm not trying to sell it.
I think we should sell it. Like, the
lessons, I wish, I miss him terribly. And I know he was just getting started on this journey to push this. And, we've got to, I think, because it's
absolutely
more needed now, I think, than even when we were going through what we went through.
I agree. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.